We do have a very special guest on with us today. Somebody that when I heard him train, I was like, wow, like it really actually like hit me. And I was like, he knows what he's talking about. He hasn't been here for too long. He's very well versed with universal life and index universal life and kind of knowing which way to go and which way not to go, which I was, as you all know, I'm very open. Like I'm not great at that, right? So we have Drew Martin on the call with us today. Super, super excited. I won't tell his story for him. But Drew, how are you doing today?
Once again, I'm doing great.
Awesome. Great to hear. Good to hear you're still doing great. So Drew, just to kind of jump right in, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about your background, what you were doing before Family First Life, and kind of how you got into Family First Life.
Yeah, so about like ever since I got out of high school, actually before I got out of high school, I worked in construction. So from age 16, like 2 weeks after my birthday, I got a job in construction, worked there for about 9 years, I think, and ended up pretty much running switch companies in the middle, but ended up running the whole company. Um, but just wasn't really happy with kind of the trajectory of where it was going, right? So I heard about Family First Life on Brad Lee's podcast, Dropping Bombs. He was interviewing Sean Mike, and I was like, that doesn't sound very sexy, but okay. So I started checking into it more. I'm like, this is a great, great business opportunity. Yes, maybe it's not going to be easy in the beginning, but it's got all the aspects to a great business where the longer you do it, the more it compounds and the better your results are. Like, and that's just business. It's business is all about leverage. So ended up just Google searching, got connected with Elite Agency or FFL Elite, and at the end of the day, got connected with Micah Durkers, and he got me started, and it was terrible for the first 6 months, and I didn't make any money, and I was majorly in credit card debt and other debt, and it was not fun. And that was largely due to complacency and really not putting in the effort needed just on a base level. So fast forward, I got started in, like, I came back from Florida, ended up writing my first business in March. Um, and didn't really make any money for the first 5, 6 months. Towards the fall, starting to take off a little bit and really just getting a lot more serious about it, and ended up issuing about 100 grand last year, right around there, over mostly over the last 4 months or so. And since then, I got into IULs, got into just started building my team. Like, I don't have a big team, straight up, but just got started on that here a couple of months ago, and we'll see where it takes us. Looks like a fun road ahead.
Amen. I love it. So you hit on a couple of different things, and I always like to hear about people's backgrounds because a lot of different agents come from a lot of different places and backgrounds. So Drew, one thing that stuck out to me is 16 years old, being in construction. One thing I know about that is you were working hard since you were 16 years old, right? Like we're not confused about that. So you were working hard, and it's just a lot about your ethic that you probably brought here. Maybe in the beginning, I love how you're like, hey, in the first 6 months, I was terrible, right? And you're like, I got serious about what I wanted to do because I viewed this now as a business, right? I wasn't viewing it as, hey, I'm going to write this policy, pay my bills, kind of move on. And I think we all kind of start on that trajectory of like, let's just get out of debt, right? And then we try to move that pace. But if we don't move it, like you're saying, Drew, it's not going to move itself, right? So, with that being said, another thing I want to hit on too is guys, like Drew heard about Family First Life on a Bradley podcast, Dropping Bombs. Now, you guys might laugh, and I love Bradley now, but I did not know a whole lot about Bradley. Rami used to be like Bradley, and I'm like, oh, like that's cool. Like I got no idea, but guys, like you never know what folks are watching. So I love that story. I didn't know that, Drew. So you've been here for a full calendar year, but you've been here for less than a full calendar year. This year will complete your first full calendar year. Is that right?
Correct. So I started in March of 22, I guess it was.
Perfect.
So first year was not a full calendar year. This will be my first full calendar year. Correct.
Awesome. Awesome. Good stuff. And, let's talk a little bit about that transition, right? Of, what does it take really for an agent to be successful here? because I know when I came into the business, like I was like you, Drew, like I was like, just the first 6 months, I was like a mess, right? But you don't have to be like that, right? You really don't. You just have to plug in and, there's certain things you got to do and you have to do them not for your upline, not for anybody else except yourself, right? And if you can start doing those things, or at least recognizing, hey, I could probably do a little bit better here, or hey, I haven't done this and I've been told to do it, quite a few times. Like, Drew, talk to us a little bit about that journey and kind of what kept you here and why do you think now you're popping, very large numbers?
Yeah, so really the business is like, first off, you have to understand this is not a job, it is a business. Period. End of story. If you view this as a job, I'm sorry, but go get a job. This is not for you. And I've told people on my team, recruits, that, they're not putting in the effort. Look, this is not for you. That might work. Like that works fine when you're getting paid by the hour at freaking Amazon warehouse or wherever it is. But here you get paid based off of results, period. So you have to view it as a job. So once you understand, I mean, as a business, once you understand that it's a business, business is not complicated, guys. It's very simple. Your inputs equal results. And your job as a business owner is to increase those results per measure of input. Okay. It's called leverage. Okay. This business is one of the most simple businesses out there. We have a blueprint from day one. Now, what people don't understand is a lot of people you see, there's a lot of like hustle culture on Instagram or wherever, right? Your time doesn't, how much effort you put in is only one of those leverages, those levers that you can pull to increase your leverage. Okay. Leverage is everything. You're leveraging your time. So to demonstrate that, I got just a little quiz for you guys. Number one, so let's take a brand new agent. Okay. And this just demonstrates that effort is the first lever. And we'll go through a couple of these different levers. But brand new agent, they're both starting out. Who's going to make the most money? Just first thing that comes to your head.
Activity.
Whoever puts in the most effort and activity, right? Okay. That's leverage. So effort is your number one lever that you can pull to increase your output. Okay. Increase your results. The more results, the more you get paid. Okay. So these two agents, right? Agent one and agent two, they're both putting in the same amount of activity, right? Let's say they put in the exact same amount of activity. Who's going to get the best results?
We don't know yet.
Whoever's using a dialer.
Boom.
It's pretty simple. Like people say, look, I can't afford phone burner. It's $100 a month. Listen, if you have a stack of leads and I have a stack of leads and I can make 600 dials a day and you make 400 dials a day, that's 50% more dials that I made, meaning 50% more contacts, 50% more appointments, and 50% more sales. One sale is like $1,000. We all know that, right? On average. Well, factor in chargebacks, cost of leads, you walk away with maybe $700 of profit. Okay. Let's say your closing ratio is 25%, which is not great. So with those numbers, we have to track our numbers, but with those numbers, we can figure out how much we're making per appointment, right? So I don't know. I was homeschooled, so I don't know math very well, but what's 25% of 700? It's like what, 180 or something approximately?
I'm like, yeah, that's a tough one, but that sounds about right. Yeah.
Got to be close. I don't know. But anyway,
175. You got it.
$175. That means if you can set one more appointment on your dial day, you're already paid for phone burner. Okay. So phone burner is a lever that you can pull to increase your leverage and make more sales, because we're getting paid on production, not time. So if we can pull that lever and increase our leverage, we make more sales, right? It's simple business. People don't get that. They're like $100. Give me a break. You have 2 dial days a week if you're in home. If you're like me and doing telesales, you have 5 or 6, right? But let's say you do in home, you have 2 dial days a week, 4 weeks. That's 8 dial days in a month. And if you can make 50% more dials, you'll have a whole lot more appointments. Okay. So let's say these 2 agents, they both put in equal effort. So equal dials, they both have a dialer. Who's going to make more sales?
The one with phone burner.
They're both using phone burner. What's the next lever you can pull to increase your leverage?
Door knocks.
Well, before that, that's great. That makes a big difference. But before that, just skills. Okay. Whoever's got the better skills makes more sales, right? But we all know if one person has great skills, but they're not pulling the first 2 levers, they're not getting the dials in, the activity doesn't matter. So those are the first 2 levers you pull. Skills is the third, because skills don't mean anything if you're not putting effort or activity in, right? So whoever has the best skills. So that's the next lever you can pull to increase your production and increase the money in your pocket. Okay. So these 2 agents, they now both have the same amount of effort. If they're putting the same effort, same dialer, right? Same technology, same skills, who's going to make more sales?
Who's
Somebody
going the
up,
extra
or
mile? I was gonna say, come on, guys.
yeah, this is, I don't want to just be
It's not
talking.
a
I'm a
quiz with
little
me and
awkward.
Drew.
Yeah.
Drew doesn't want to quiz me. No, I'm only kidding.
All
Rami,
right.
what do you think it is?
Repeat it one more time.
Okay, you got the same effort, same dials, same technology, which that's why we have the same dials, same skills. Who makes the most sales?
Who has the most leads?
That, and that's kind of the same idea, but yeah, whoever has the most leads or whoever has the better quality leads, right? We do the same effort dialing silver leads. We're probably not going to get the same results as if we're dialing leads with beneficiary. Okay. But these levers go in order to some extent. You can pull all of them, but they need to go in some order, because if a brand new agent spending $80 a lead on mailers, they might lose money. They might not have the skills for the lead lever to make sense, to be profitable. Okay. It's just a sequence. It's pretty simple. Okay. After that, they have the same leads, same skills, same activity, same dials, same effort, same 8, 10, 12 hours a day, whatever that is. Who makes the most money or the most sales?
Maybe the person most passionate about it, or willing to really, work with the customers and get to know them and whatnot, pursue.
Personality. That's good. It's not
Kind
the one
of.
I'm looking for, but that is good. Whoever has the best offer. Okay. And this is just sales 101. Whoever's got the better offer at this point is going to make the most sales. Well, how can we have a better offer doing insurance, right? We have a lot of products. If one agent has Americo and one agent has Americo Prosperity, AMAM, AIG, who's going to be able to get more people qualified, right? If you're selling final expense to Betty for $1,000 AP sale, and I'm selling an IUL for 7,000, who's going to make more sales? It's a better offer. It's a bigger sale. If I'm selling annuities and you're selling mortgage protection, as long as we're like consistently sticking, like putting deals together, we know which one's going to be higher, right? So whoever has the better offer. Okay. Now, all that, we have the same offer, same skills, same leads, same dialer, same effort, same everything. Now who makes the most sales?
The person who works the most.
We're putting in the same amount of time, but I like that.
Like you said, the person with the better product knowledge, the better offer, the better, just.
They're all the same. There's one more lever that I'm aware of that you can pull, or actually 2. But okay, the next lever you can pull is the agent who makes the most sales is the one who hired a team, 15 agents to sell for him. Okay. Now, we both have the same team, same leads, same skills, same everything, all the way down through everything we just touched on. Now, who makes the most money?
Person who can help the most agents win.
Exactly. The person with the best systems and processes in place to get new agents off the ground quick.
That's fair.
Everything about this business is leverage. And this is not original to me. I heard this on a podcast from Alex Hormozy, and it struck right down the heart. And I'm like, I'm looking at this all wrong. But this is how business works. I can't believe I had missed it for so long. But business is all about leverage. Whoever has the most leverage gets the most return on their effort. Okay. Now, at any point in time, we can increase our effort, our time, our dials, and that's more leverage, right? We can pull all of those levers. Now, granted, you probably can't hire a team and get them off the ground and winning quickly if you don't have the skills, the systems, the leads, everything in place already. That's a lever you're pulling on that might not get you results because you don't have the skills available, or you don't have the skills to get them winning. So to an extent, they have to be pulled in a certain order. But this business is leverage. So when you can view it that way, the next thing you have to think about, and I'm not trying to run away with this. This is supposed to be back and forth a little, but what makes a successful agent?
Well, I think what you just hit on, I think that that's huge. I mean, when you just went through that, like I've been in the industry forever and I'm like, okay, like, wow, like that hits home. That makes sense. Right. And now I love how you're saying, like, to an extent, it needs to go in that order. Right. But guys, it's like, effort, right? Like he said, like that's the number one thing that you can control also, and you can leverage. If you can leverage anything in this business, leverage it, right? Like I've been kicking myself in the butt because I slept on phone burner for so long because I'm used to manually dialing leads. Little did I know, it's really difficult to dial 400 leads in a day without an automated system, right? So it's like, that's the second thing. That makes sense to me. And then also, guys, skills. Everything in this business, what I love about it, Drew, it's like it's all teachable, right? Like you can learn it from anybody. You don't have to be a special kind of person. You have to be willing to learn. That's all you have to be, is willing to learn. And I think that that makes it beautiful, but at the same time, it can mess us up because we can sit there and be like, I showed up for the dial team. I showed up for the team call. I showed up for this. I was on the T&L. Good, you should be. But if you're not going to work, nobody cares if you're on the dial team. And I say that with all love because it's without action, nothing's going to happen, right? So guys, skills turned into sales, right? And the great thing about this business is once you have those skills, they're typically really hard to lose. So once you got them, you got them. Like they're in your bag, like you're good to go, right? And then leads or better quality leads. This is something we talk about all the time. The leads you start on are not going to be your leads forever. At least they should not be your leads forever, right? You're developing different systems. You're going into better leads because you're being a business owner, like Drew mentioned 18 times, saying essentially, I'm going to put more into my business so I can yield maybe more time, so I can yield more appointments, so I can be more efficient with the time, more efficient with the dialer, more efficient with the skills, right? And that's what the leads are going to allow us to do. And then the offer, guys, we're brokers, right? If now I'm going to be the first person to be like, hey, I will not contract you with 20 different companies if you write no business. But if you're out there crushing it, like, let's go, like, let's contract it up, right? But guys, like Drew said, we have access to, at least when you're getting started, 5 different companies. A lot of our competitors have one. And now if you're only working with one, you're like, oh, I got declined with company ABC in the home, so I left. Guys, that's silly. We have a product for everybody, right? So be resourceful, right? Leverage. And then I love hire a team. I think that build your team, build your base shop, build your group, build the people you want around you, right? In this business. What else I love about this business, Drew, is like we get to decide who we want to work with. And if it's not a good fit, it's just simply not a good fit, right? So I think that that's huge, because when you hire or you're working with people, like there needs to be systems in place, or you're not only going to mess yourself up, but you're going to mess your team up too. And that's not okay. So Drew, kind of when you were looking at this, was this something that helped you go from in the beginning, your first 6 months, kind of like dragging a little bit to picking it up? Or what do you think really helped pick it up?
Yeah, so like I've always been like a business minded person. Okay. I had never thought about it in terms of leverage as much before, but I had thought about it kind of a back end approach where I was kind of coming to some of the same conclusions without really knowing how I got there. Okay. So it's this, and this is just an easy way to explain it, you know, side by side, right? But if you like, take for instance, like your systems that you use on a personal level, right? If you have a CRM to keep track of all your clients, doing some outreach, emails, whatnot, is that going to make you more money? Yes or no? Yes, it will. Yeah. Right? It's going to help you be more organized. It's going to keep your retention up, because when Betty Sue calls, you're going to be able to click on her name and have her info right up. You're going to know her dog's name, where she lives. She got evicted last month, whatever it is, all your notes are right there, right? So saving one sale is way more profitable than paying that $70, $100 a month than not, right? So if you can put in 100 and save 1,000, it's a no-brainer, right? And in the same way, so you think of like leads, and like leverage is just leverage. You got to know which lever to pull. Okay. And if you don't, talk to your upline, they'll be able to help you. But if you're like, take leads, for example, like Marissa said, the leads you start on are not the leads you're going to continue working for your whole career, right? Like, I don't know how you guys do it, but I get my agent started on $1.50 silver leads, because if you buy 500, you can't not break even or make money. Like there's going to be a couple sales just falling in your lap. You can't lose. If you spend the same amount of money on $15 or $20 leads as a brand new agent with no skills, nothing, you might butcher it up and not make the sales and lose money, right? So pulling the right lever at the right time makes sense, but you should be advancing down this thing. Same with training, with skills. If you're not training, like, go get a job. That's ridiculous. You should be training yourself, especially in the beginning, watching tons of YouTube videos, whatnot. And you should be doing like live training with team members, whether it's your upline or just somebody else who's on a path to win too. Like, get on Zoom or on Discord or whatever you guys use and do role play. It's not hard. Like 30 minutes in the morning gets you fresh and ready to go, and you're sharp, right? So like the biggest thing for new agents, or what makes a successful agent, is the ability to leverage your income generating activities. Okay? Your IGAs. If you can leverage those, you make more money, right? So to do that, what do you need to know to be able to do that? Guess what? You have to track your numbers. Whether that's tally marks on a paper, yeah, it sucks. I don't like to do that either. But you have to track your numbers. If you don't know what your closing ratio is, or how many dials you've made, or how many, what the pickup rate is, how do you know what when you cross test that with a new batch of leads, how do you know if they're better or not, or better, higher leveraged, right? I know I can get silver leads, make 400 dials, and my average dial is going to make me about $3 in profit. Okay. I can spend a little more when like our ad campaigns that we run, get those leads. They're like 10 times as expensive, but the average phone call makes me $30 in profit. Okay. But if you don't know your numbers, you don't know, you might spend $1,000 on 60 leads and think they're terrible because you didn't close any, or whatever it is. Or you think they're great because you closed 2 sales. Well, guess what? 2 sales, you made $1,000. factor in chargebacks, costs, like everything. Out, like after you take off the cost of leads, you're down to like 400. Okay. If you did the same thing with silver leads, you might be farther ahead.
Right.
Okay. So if you don't track your numbers, you don't know how you can improve. If you track your numbers and you say, look, I spent $1,000 on these leads, I got through them in 2 days, but I made $5,000. All of a sudden, you know, you're doing pretty well. Whereas the other leads, you spent $200, you got through them in 7 days, but you made $3,000. Yeah, your ROI is way better, but your ROI on your time is way worse. And we're
Mhm.
trying to increase our ROI on our time. Okay. So the second thing that makes agents successful, and this is the one that held me back the most and still does, high activity on the boring things. It's always exciting to get a new dialer, a new CRM, try a new pack of leads, a new wherever you get them. Let's try telesales. Let's go to IULs. Let's do whatever it is. Oh, I'm going to start recruiting. I got to get on Indeed. I got to DM people. And you're always switching. If you stick to the boring stuff, it works. Buy leads, call them, work on your skills, track your numbers. And if you stick to the boring stuff, that activity alone is by and large the biggest reason that agents are successful or not successful from my point of view. Obviously, there's some of you guys on here that have been in this business a lot longer than me, and I could be wrong. But most people can't stick to the boring stuff. It's boring as hell to make 600 dials in a day, even 300. Like, I'm tired of that. I don't want to do it, but it makes you money and it does well, right? And I do all virtual. So like, I'm not like having the, excitement of driving around. I'm sitting here dialing, right? But sticking to the boring stuff, it makes all the difference. And then lastly,
I just
like,
want to quickly hit on
Yeah,
that,
go
Drew,
ahead.
too, because guys, high activity on the boring stuff is what's going to win, right? Just like Drew said, if you don't know your numbers, like you're messing up, and you're not messing up for anybody else except yourself. Because here's the thing, when I came into this industry, I had to sit next to somebody in like a dial pit. This was not at Family First Life, just disclaimer. And it was like, essentially, I'm just sitting there dialing with like literally probably 18 other people around me. And they're like, here's the phone script, here's the lead, this is what you're going to say, call them. And I was like, I don't think I'm ready. I didn't practice this. Like, they're like, that's great, call them. And it's like, when you're put in that position of like, just do it, it's amazing because you have to just do it. But when you're at your house, just like Drew's saying, you don't necessarily have to do it. At that point, it becomes an option. It becomes, is this going to be my business, or do I want to go back to doing ABC? Now, do you have an ultimatum? I don't know. For me, I always say this is the plan, right? This is the plan, period. Like this is the plan. But if you have a backup plan, 10-1 says on those times that you want to not keep high activity on the boring stuff, you're going to start blaming outside factors. You're going to be like, it's the leads, it's the this. No, it's that you went from making 1,000 dials a day to making 100 dials a day. And now the activity standard went way down and you got to get it way back up. 99% of the time, and I would 100% agree with you, Drew, where new agents struggle is just that, high activity on the boring stuff. And I think any agent, to be honest with you, right? We're human. But at the end of the day, it's like, guys, that's what you need to know. If you don't know your numbers, you don't know your ROI, you don't know your lead type, you don't know what lead type picks to you, you never trialed these things, it's not going to get any better than it feels today. Like, it's just not. It's not going to be like you wake up tomorrow and you do the same exact thing. But at the same time, also what I hear you saying, Drew, is, hey, don't change the plan. If you're in home and you're helping 50 families a month, there's no reason for you to change the plan unless that's what you want to do. Now, if you're virtual and let's just flip the script and you're helping 80 families a month, same thing. There's no reason to change what you're doing. It's working, right? But sometimes we get so in our head that we're like, we need to do this and we have to do this. And all we really have to do is get back to work. That's what we have to do. We have to put the activity in to win. So stick to the boring stuff and stick with whatever is boring, but it's working for you. But guys, we don't know that until you have the data and the activity. So until you do, nobody can help you. And I think that that's just kind of huge. You have to just jump right into it. So Drew, that was a great point. I love that one.
Yeah, real quick, if you like, think about this. If you commit to giving it your all in life insurance in this business for 30 years, is there any way you can imagine that you could possibly not have just ridiculous success?
No,
What about 20 years?
no.
What about 10 years? If you stuck at this for 10 years and just try to increase your leverage wherever you feel like you can, is there any way you could not be a millionaire in 10 years? No. What about 5 years?
Nope.
I don't think so. Some of you probably think that'd be maybe a stretch, but if you try to increase your leverage in every way you can, is there any way you don't make $1 million 5 years from now? What kills people's businesses is switching. They're always jumping from, it's shiny object syndrome. They're always jumping from one thing to the next thing. I want to sell solar. I could mix in solar. Well, tell you what, if you sell solar and life insurance, do you think you'll sell as much total as you would if you focus on one thing? I doubt that.
Definitely not.
Right? I want to do X, Y, Z. Look, you can't building. If you have a goal that you want to get to, let's say it's $1 million a year in income. Okay. Very quantifiable. And let's just use the building a bridge example. If you're trying to build a bridge, how's the fastest way to get to the other side? Is to build one freaking bridge. Not two, not three. If you're building 3 bridges at once, you're working with FFL, you're working with another IMO, you're trying to sell solar, whatever all you're trying to do, are you going to get there as quickly? Yeah, you can get there building 2 bridges, but which one's going to be fastest? And if you built one bridge, how easy would it be to build another? Stick at one thing for as long as it takes. But I always say, look, I'm going to stick at this for long enough that it would be unreasonable not to be successful. And that's the attitude you want to have. And to go back full circle to what you were saying a minute ago, Marissa, the point at which I started taking off in this business was the point where I was in a hole so deep that my plan B was no longer feasible. My plan B was to go back to construction and just continue where I left off. The job was open. I could have went back at any time. But I got to a point through my first how many months of failure that I realized that income is not going to get me out of this hole for like 10 years. And I said, there is no longer a plan B. I have got to make this work. And that is number one. That's when I made a change. And it's also a reason that I don't hire people part-time. Because, and there's, I mean, I'm not saying I don't have anyone part-time, but I do not try to hire people part-time, at least in the beginning. If they want to switch partway through, whatever. But if you're going to be successful in this business, you have to be committed, because it's really easy to lose interest and feel down on your luck when you're making a lot, like when you made 600 dials and got a bunch of FUs and that's it. No sales. You have to be committed and burn the bridges.
Amen.
So,
And I think that's huge. And like you said, the plan B, like once you can kill that mentally in your brain, it's like it's off the table, right? Because like you said, like the 10-year plan, when you think about that, Drew, it's like, okay, maybe short-term gratification might say, hey, go back to construction. Long-term gratification, you're going to be like, I wish I stuck out that insurance thing that I was getting really good at. And I wish I built the bridge, right? I wish I built the one bridge instead of, like you said, the 2, the 3, the 5. You can build 27 bridges, but you got to build them one by one. And I think that that's huge. So sticking at this just long enough that to understand like, hey, it is a skill set, right? You do have to learn and move through it. Sometimes it is going to suck, like flat like that. It's going to suck at times. You're going to be like people, like guys, I like quit mentally like once a day. And then I'm like, all right, I'm back. Like, in like to a point, obviously, right? Like that's okay, right? Like I don't actually quit. It's like, all right, I need a minute. Like, you know what I mean? Tom, just like 20 people just told me to fly a kite. But here's the thing, I don't have an issue with rejection anymore. It's like, you got to get through that. And as you work through sales, you're going to get through the rejection doesn't bother you. Like somebody could literally tell me anything on the phone or face to face, to be honest. And it's like, okay, like cool, like we'll get past it. But that it's skills you have to acquire, but you have to be committed to the process because sometimes the process is not going to be easy. It's not supposed to be easy. If it was going to be easy, no, it's cliche, every single person would be doing this, guys. In my opinion, the top 20% of elite performers, like in the industry that want to like be successful here, they're working at that tier of, like you're saying, Drew, in 5 years, you can hit X. And I think that that's important because there's not a plan B. And when you kill plan B, the only other plan is to make plan A work, which we go back to the steps that Drew gave us in the beginning. So I love that. And
Yeah.
Drew, one other thing I want to just ask you about, because when we were at the sales conference, you were huge on IULs and essentially properly structuring them when it's right, when it's wrong. And I want to ask you a question in the simplest way I can, because I know that this can get very in depth.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about the difference between an IUL, an IULE, and whole life, and when that should be pitched, or if it should ever be pitched as a whole life product. Does that make sense? A good question. Like that's a question. You got it?
Yeah.
Cool.
So first, you got to understand the main difference. There's two main differences between IULs and whole life. Okay. Whole life is a fixed premium for a specific amount of death benefit. Okay. And there's ways to manipulate a whole life product with term riders to have a lot of cash value. Okay. But very simply, it's a specific premium. Your cash value is going to earn a specific interest rate, usually around 5%, with a specific death benefit. An IUL is a flexible product. You have a specific death benefit, but you can put in to a certain limit as little or much money as you want, as long as you're above the minimum premium. Okay. Now, an IULE or an Easy Solve, which if you have the little Mutual of Omaha quoter on your phone, you have Easy Solve. That is underfunded. That is very low, very near the minimum premium. Okay. Which what that means is the product is only guaranteed. Usually it depends on age a little bit, but usually about 20 years. Okay. So if the cash value that accrues earns a really great interest rate, it could be whole life. But if it doesn't earn a good interest rate, it could be term essentially and expire. Okay. So Index Universal Life is easily the greatest insurance policy available. Like nobody could tell me otherwise. But it is a flexible premium. So what that allows us to have overfunded policies up to a specific limit. Okay. Which all your quoting software can figure that out for you. You just put in max funded. Okay. That is going to be putting all that extra money over and above the minimum straight into cash value. Okay. So what that's going to do inside the cash value account, you're going to earn interest instead of a fixed rate like whole life. It's going to be a variable rate based off of an index fund. Okay. So that index fund has a floor at 0 and they vary as far as the cap and the participation rate, but most of them average about 8% per year. Average. Okay. Now, if you do the math, 8% without any downside beats the pants off of the stock market over the long term. Because if you lose 40% in the stock market, bam, you need like 80% to get back. Okay. But so when they say 10% average return on the S&P 500, that's technically true, but it's not your real return. That's your average mathematical return, but it's not what you're actually seeing. Okay. So the IUL is going to beat the pants off of that. So this IUL account with all that cash value in it is a great place to put money for a couple of reasons. Number one, you have great interest returns. And number two, you can borrow against that, pull your money out at an interest rate that's usually variable, okay? That's typically between 3 to 5%, usually closer to 5, okay? Why would you pay interest on your own money? Because when you pull that out, you're borrowing the insurance company's money, but your cash value is still in the account earning about 8% on average. Well, if you understand numbers, and I do, and I was homeschooled, so I think everyone can understand, if you can earn 8% and you're paying 4%, that's a win. That's business 101. You want to do that as many times as you can. Okay. So it becomes, and also the money you pull out, because it's a loan, is tax-free. Okay. And if you add all the cost of insurance together over the life of the policy and average it out as an expense compared to your average cash value, you're going to end up with a little under, if you're my age, you're going to be paying like 0.5% towards the insurance part of your total cash value on average over the life of the policy. Hard to explain, but the cost of insurance is essentially your fees. Most 401ks, you have a manager that costs you 1 to 3%. It's a big difference. Okay. And then on top of that, those fees aren't just fees. Like 80% of that money is going straight to pay for your death benefit. So if you die tomorrow, your family has $1 million tax-free. So does that answer your question? I kind of rambled. That's the main difference. So okay, I remember the question. So if you're trying to say, okay, when does this make sense? Okay, this makes sense for anybody between the ages of 0 to about 50 to 55, depending, or 50 to 60, depending on the situation, who has enough money to invest a little bit on top of their insurance. Okay. If they are living on like razor thin margins with their budget and $50 of term coverage is all they can afford, this doesn't make sense. But if they can cough up the extra $250, it makes a ton of sense for them because it'll get them way farther ahead over life. Okay. So that's the main difference. Usually I pin it against term instead of whole life. Whole life's kind of the same thing, but a little different. Like if you're using it for cash value, it's going to be a little different product. It doesn't work as well long term. It has its advantages short term, but I don't like it personally. But yeah, that's the main difference. And I usually use it in a place where I would be writing term for somebody, but they're not like super broke and they have some money to put into an investment that will blow the pants off of the money they would be putting in the 401k.
Love it.
If you
Love
can
it. So
show that
like
to them and
that's
present
the mark.
value. Yeah, if you can present the value, all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, it's $50 a month is too much for insurance, but I could put 1,000 into this. Like, or 400 or whatever it is, you end up with really big premiums.
Right. Because it's hitting values from different angles. So I love that. I love that. And you did an awesome job explaining that too. If we had more time, I would be like, Drew, we're going to do an IUL training, but we don't. Anything you want to wrap up with in terms of new agent mindset? Kind of you hit on honestly great points through the whole call.
Yeah.
Anything else
I had one other note here.
Yeah,
And really the biggest thing I feel like keeps agents from being successful. Why agents are unsuccessful is 2 things. We already touched on the one, distractions, and that could be anything from vices to hobbies to new things to other job opportunities to new systems, like new dialers, like just even stuff that's in the business but is not making you money. Okay. But probably the biggest thing and the biggest thing that keeps new agents from being successful, from what I've seen personally, is a lack of belief in the system. If I could tell you that, look, if you make 400 dials a day for 30 days, I guarantee you'll make $4,000, or I'll pay you the $4,000 myself. Would you make the 300 dials if you were working somewhere else for same amount of money? and you're like, well, I could make 4 grand or I could make more. Yes, you'd make the dials. Why don't you?
Absolutely.
It's a lack of belief, because I will guarantee if you make 400 dials a day, you spend a half hour in training and just even working silver or bronze leads that are like 6 to 12 months old, you're going to make 4 grand. Like, you can't not. That's a lot of dials and a lot of people to talk to who requested help in life insurance at one point. You can't not make money. People don't, because they don't believe it. If I told you the same thing, but you would make $1 million end of the month, or I'll pay you $1 million, you would do it. Well, the same thing goes. If you put in the inputs for a long enough period of time, you will make your $1 million. You just have to believe it and execute. That's all there is to it.
Absolutely. And that's like almost like mic drop, because belief is everything, guys. If you don't believe in the system, you're not going to work the system. You're not going to do any of the things that Drew just went through. You might do them at a low level, or you might just do them from a place of this is not going to work. And if you start working from a place of this does not work, it won't work. I promise
If you
you.
think your leads are crap, you're not going to sell any of them. If you think they're brand new and awesome and they're 6 months old, but you think they're brand new, guess what? You sell a whole hell of a lot more. Like, you just
Absolutely.
do.
Yep. So it's like it does. Everything always comes back to belief in this industry. And it's like if you don't believe in the system yourself over time, and you don't believe that life insurance in any way, shape, or form or facet is important, you're not going to win here. Like, in all respect, like you should just leave today. The thing is sometimes our belief has to be built. But in order for us to build the belief, we need to work the system, right? So blind faith is everything. And Drew, I think that that's actually, I would wholeheartedly agree that that's probably the biggest reason that new agents don't see success is that lack of belief. But like you said, you're like, hey, if you do this week in, week out, and if you don't see the result, I'm going to give it to you. We would all probably do it, right? Like the $1
And
million
guess what? We
example.
would all make the money.
That's right. I was gonna say we would all get the money. Like I'm like, Drew, I'll take the million. You know what I mean? Like truly, right? It's like when we can go into something with blind faith, it's gonna be the best thing you can do. In this business, you have to do it. You have to want to do it. And if you don't, it can really mess you up over time. So yeah, I love that last note, and I'm happy that you shared it, Drew. Thank you. All right,
Yeah.
guys. Anybody have questions, comments quickly for Drew? I just want to be respectful of his time.
Yeah,
Feel
I
free to
got
go
like
ahead.
5 minutes. I got a 4 o'clock. So any quick questions I can take? I got 5 minutes yet.
Drew,
All right.
real quick, why would you only want to write an IUL on someone if they can overfund it as opposed to someone that wants like a whole life policy and then you go write them an IULE, but their monthly payment is very minimal?
So an IULE is just is majorly underfunded, and it kind of compares to a term. Like, it could lapse 20 years from now, so it's not really a full whole life. Like, whole life is guaranteed for the rest of your life. An IULE on like Easy Solve is not. So that kind of defeats the whole purpose of getting permanent life insurance.
And Drew, real quick,
Sorry. Yeah. Rami.
Christina, is that good?
Yeah, you're good.
Real quick, might be a stupid question, but why would you use F&G over NLG for an IUL? Is there any major difference between two products, or is it just based off, other factors, or is there for the client, is there a true difference between the two products?
No, there's no, like, F&G and NLG are both, in my opinion, the two best carriers. I prefer F&G, my personal policies with F&G for one main reason, and that is their interest rate that you loan against the policy, because that's why I'm using it for, is be my own bank, right? Their cap is at 5%. National Life Groups is at 6%. It's a variable rate, but this way I know that it cannot go above 5%. Okay. So that means the index only has to average 6% for me to be making a return, which just leaves it in a terrible economy. It just gives me a little bit more security. So that's And besides that, as far as selling it, F&G illustrates a little higher, so it makes it a little easier, like, to show the value, even though they both illustrate very conservatively. But they're both tremendously awesome carriers. They're both objectively about the same. So, and plus F&G pays you like 10 or 15% more. 10%, I believe.
Appreciate it, Drew.
So
Thank you.
that's worth something too.
Awesome. Well, Drew, thank you so much for your time today. This call was absolutely amazing. I know I took a lot away from it, and I'm sure everybody else did. So thank you for being on with us. I look forward to seeing you at convention.